Hi there. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Crystal Wittevrongle, collaborating with Common Sense Calgary, here today with Landon Johnston, who is running for City Council Ward 14 in Calgary's upcoming elections. Landon, thank you so much for chatting with me here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'd love to start off by hearing a bit more about you and the foundation you're bringing with you as you plan to head into City Hall.
Well, my background is trades. I guess since high school, right? Going to college, university just didn't feel right for me. So I just, worked my way up, starting, roofing and landscaping, and then getting into, indentured trades. And, since, probably around 2009, I've been in the trades doing refrigeration, HVAC, gas fitting, plumbing. And then for the last probably decade and a bit here, I've been doing my own business in Calgary. So,
Okay.
which I've been enjoying and hiring people and going through that process. And, you learn a lot running your own business, right? You make mistakes, you learn from them. Either you get swallowed up or you survive, right? And, I've been pretty successful in the last, at least 8 or 9 years here. So yeah, my background's trades. I grew up in the Okanagan, in Vernon, right? So it's a little different feel than what you get out here in Alberta. But I'll tell you, a lot of people from BC come out to Alberta for the same reason I did, and the money was out here, and I met my wife out here, so it's been pretty good to me. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, I assume that you're very busy at the doors, and so what are you hearing from the people in your ward as some of the top priorities in this election?
Honestly, the biggest issue is that we've had a counselor, and I don't want to harp on him too much here, but our leadership in Ward 14 has just been, it's hard to say, not necessarily non-existent, because he shows up and votes, but just doesn't really reflect what Ward 14 wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's as easy to see his voting history and being like, well, going door to door, you could go to 100 houses and 90% of the people would say they would have voted against what our current leadership had voted on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just doesn't reflect necessarily what Ward 14 wants anymore. And so at the doors, people just want to be heard again, right? They want to know that if there's going to be a safety issue on the streets, that not only are they going to be listened to, but steps will be taken to get that thing rectified immediately. And it just seems every 4 years, a lot of projects get done before election day, and you're just like, well, where was this the other 3 years, right? And so people are just a little disenfranchised right now, and kind of scary to think that we're going to have low voter turnout this year. And you know what? That's what, if people don't get out and vote, we end up with leadership that just doesn't have the mandate of the people anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
even when I go to doors and I meet people that maybe don't necessarily agree with me, I just tell them, get out and vote, right? If you're really worried about me that much, then have your voice heard. Otherwise, you're not going to be reflected at City Hall. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just getting people out and knowing that if there's going to be a contentious issue out there, right? If you didn't vote, like, it is kind of true that you don't really get a say in things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just at the door, people are just wanting to be heard again, right? And
Yeah.
and not just with everything, like transit. Like, we could go on and on about every little issue, but I mean, the bottom line, this is a great city. It's just the lack of accountability is just the biggest issue at doors right now. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely hearing that myself as well. I'm also
Mhm,
hearing a lot of folks concerned about affordability.
mhm,
And playing into that is our current and ever increasing property taxes.
mhm.
What are your thoughts on the current property taxes and what do you plan to do when you're in city council?
Okay, so my biggest issue is that our current council, probably for the last decade and a bit, they defer a lot of these big projects for the next council to deal with,
Hmm.
right? So you can't promise getting rid of taxes. Like, I know Jeff Davison and maybe a couple other mayor candidates, they're saying, well, 0% taxes, just not realistic when our infrastructure has been neglected for so long, right? And as a trades guy, I see what lack of maintenance does to furnaces and air conditioners, right? It's going to cost you more in the long run if we don't fix it now. And that's just going to be all hands on deck going forward there. So taxes, I mean, if we can keep it at inflation, I think that's responsible, right? Anything more than that, I believe, is a mismanagement of people's money. And anything less than that is just going to be impossible, right? I don't want to make promises you can't keep. So for me, I would love to keep it at inflation. And before even we talk about tax raises, even inflation tax raises, we've got to do cuts first, right? And I've seen it firsthand down at City Hall, just the lack of oversight, like I said, lack of accountability. It's every single department has been getting away with a lot of things that, you know, you and I as homeowners or business owners, we wouldn't get away with. And I think we should hold them to the same standards. So
it sounds like you'd be in favor of cutting spending on that side of the equation.
Well, cutting spending on unnecessary things, right? I feel there's a lot of areas that are underfunded, right? We've got seniors getting kicked out of houses they own because they can't afford property increases. You know, assessment values in houses don't match what home values are worth right now, right? There's a big disconnect there, and people, there's a lot of vulnerable people in this city right now, and a lot of it's due to government overreach, overspending, right? But we can do better. And I'm not saying, I don't think we should cut funding to people that can't help themselves, right? And for me, that's seniors on fixed incomes. We've got veterans coming out of the army and not able to get into housing or can't get help. And then we've got kids coming out of colleges unable to afford houses or get jobs right now. So for me, there are vulnerable sectors that I would say were created by our government, right? And I think we have to look after those people. But then at the same time, we do have a large portion of this population that can work and aren't working right now, right? And so as a trades guy, I see that we have a lack of apprentices getting into the system. And I would love to work with Miles McDougall. He's the advanced education minister, to get more kids with tools in their hands right now. And that's getting them in grade 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, working with local reserves who have a very high population of unemployment, right? These are all untapped resources that, you know, we can't just we have to stop throwing money at problems, right? We got to actually get people working again, and big advocate for getting kids into trades and unemployed people into trades right now. Because, I mean, Carney wants to build 500,000 houses, but who's going to do it, right? So
yeah. So what are some areas that you see as being able to be cut with spending then? Like what current city council is doing that you think is either outside of their mandate or just reckless spending?
Well, I mean, pensions, I think that's a big part. You've got a lot of managers and directors and people making a lot of money. And if you were to ask them what you did last week, right, I don't think their wages would necessarily reflect, you know, what benefit their work has done for people, right? And maybe it does, but for me, if documents come redacted, I think it's important for residents or for constituents to assume the worst, right? And so when I do investigations into how our money's being spent down at City Hall, and it just comes back redacted, I'm just going to assume the worst. That money's just being wasted, right? I mean, we've got Calgary affordable housing, just personal experiences that they asked me to replace hot water tanks and furnaces that were well within their lifespan. And I'm talking a couple months old, brand new furnaces and brand new hot water tanks that were a couple months old. And, you know, if it wasn't for me to step up and say, hey, I'm a taxpayer, I'm not going to replace this, right? Then the city would have been on the hook for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Yeah. So it's just the oversight, right? And I just have to assume that there's a lot of wasteful spending because they won't show us the books, right? So transparency, I think, will create a lot of, you know, and maybe there's a lot of underfunded places, right? Maybe roads are underfunded. Maybe there is a lot of gaps in the system and why we have such bad infrastructure, such bad maintenance, right? But if we can't see it, then how can we really determine if cuts are necessary? Or, but again, if they don't show me the books, I'm going to assume the worst. And as a counselor, it's your job to ensure that every dollar is being spent responsibly. And our current leadership, they didn't do any of that, right? They just saw a budget and they signed off on it. And I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned affordable housing in a number of areas already. So let's chat a little bit about that. So what role do you see the city playing with regards to affordable housing? More of a subsidized subsidy, or kind of more on helping it get to market, or somewhere in between?
I'll be honest, like it's the whole system it's got to be redone, right? You have intakes being based off of anything other than needs, right? Okay. Trying to be careful, but I'm really tired of being careful. Is just, based off of like people getting into affordable housing. It's based off a lot of things, and a lot of it isn't need. Okay, so we got to get rid of that. I think it should be a temporary thing. There's a lot of people who have been in there for 10, 20 years, right? It shouldn't be a lifelong thing, right? It should be a crutch. It should be something that you're there to get back onto your feet, right? Because a lot of these people are paying 10% of market value for rentals, right? And then the state of a lot of these affordable housing units, you and I wouldn't live in it, or normal people wouldn't live in it. And so, again, maybe Calgary affordable or Calgary housing, maybe they have a lack of funding for maintenance. But I mean, firsthand shows that there's a lot of, let's say, office staff that could be out there helping fix things, and they're not. And so I think the whole system has to be redone. Just firsthand knowledge is just broken. There's something wrong there, because a lot of, I'm trying to be careful, but there's a lot of people that get into affordable housing that maybe don't necessarily need it, or maybe don't deserve it, or haven't earned it, kind of thing. And then there's, like I said, veterans, seniors, and kids that just don't have a chance coming out of school right now to get jobs and stuff. Like to me, there's a lot of Calgarians and people that probably deserve it a bit more. I think everybody obviously deserves to live in a house, but I think the goal should be just have it as a temporary thing, help people get jobs again, and then get them out of the affordable housing. Just have it as a rotating, because there's 6,000 people on the waiting list to get into affordable housing, right? Well, let's get them in, get them out, but so they don't have to come back to affordable housing, right? Whereas a lot of these people, they get in there and they stay there for a really, really long time. And I think that's wrong. I think we failed them as a society, that there's not jobs available, or we've just given them, and it's obviously not the case for everybody, but there are a lot of people that, they're okay just taking money from the government and not working again. And I've seen it firsthand with some friends and stuff. And I'm just like, listen, like, get into the trades. You can make good money right off the bat, first year, second year, third year, so I think we've got to do more caring through, pushing people. Like, I think there's got to be more of a push, because that's what the older generation used to do, right? They would see a problem, they'd go fix it, right? They didn't coddle people like we do now. But yeah, I mean, as a trades guy, like, I just see the need for getting more people on job sites again, right? So, and you know what? You don't need a master's degree in something to swing a hammer or be a laborer. And so for affordable housing, it's just there's something broken there, that we need that many affordable housing units, right? And I mean, the mayor on deck, she brags about how many people use our food bank, and I think that's wrong. I think we should be bragging about how few people need the food bank, right? So I mean, it's great that we can help people, but I think the goal should be to help people so they don't have to use those resources, right? And I think if we focus on that, then things will actually start getting better here. So
and so the city, like, maybe the role should be more in kind of like speeding up approvals and cutting the red tape to get affordable housing going from the market rather than from the city. What do you think about that aspect?
Yeah, again, I deal with the city on permit basis, licensing, and honestly, it's just it's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best. In day and age, Google being able to see how other jurisdictions do it all over the world, there's really no excuse to have such a prehistoric system that we have right now, right? And so if you actually want to build an affordable house, you have to let builders get shovels in immediately, right? Because 6 months down the road, labor costs, material costs are going to go up. And then by that time, that house went from somewhat affordable to not affordable, right? And so the city's got to get out of the way. And I've got a lot of good ideas to make Calgary, and sometimes it's looking to Edmonton, believe it or not, they have automatic permitting, right? For builders that are trustworthy, have been there long enough, and have earned a position to say, hey, we want to build this many houses here, infrastructure's there, all the safety, all the environmental stuff, it should be fast tracked, right? And then get shovels in the ground immediately. And that's how you get affordable housing. I like pointing at Legacy and Walden, very mixed housing there, right? You've got condos, townhouses, whatever, right? It's a great place for people to move up the ladder of affordability. You start a condo, townhouse, single detached. So we need more of those. And that's why obviously repealing the blanket rezoning is so important, because building a house in Bonavista Vista on the lake is not going to be affordable, but building a house closer to a C train or closer to a shopping center, that is affordable because somebody doesn't need a vehicle or can rent and get to work quickly, right? Through the transit system. Whereas you go down to Deer Run, even the transit's not great there. It doesn't come often enough for you to get to work on time, or spend half your day on transit, right? So it's just, to me, like common sense. I hate using that word, to be honest, but it's just the city knows that there's a solution there and they just don't take it. They just, I don't know. It bugs me, right? And I think talking with people, talking with builders, talking with industry leaders, I think that's a big step going forward, because they see the problems firsthand on the ground, and then they have administration that just blocks any sort of progress, right? Through paperwork or through bureaucracy, and we're not going to get rid of bureaucracy, but we can definitely make it more effective or more efficient. So yeah.
And so you touched on something that I'd love to chat about now, which is the blanket rezoning. Calgarians quite extensively opposed this policy, and City Council moved forward on it. What are your thoughts on how that unfolded?
Yeah, that was very scary, right? If you look up a guy named Timothy Keene, he was hired back in early 2024 as I like to call him the ringer. So he's got a background of going around to big cities and implementing, it was equity and diversification. He was paid a lot of money to come in and help push this through, right? He was hired on a 2 or 4 year contract. And then he spent 3 weeks pushing it through, and then he quit, right? So he was brought in to make sure this got pushed through, and then he left, right, for family reasons or whatever, right? But it's just very suspicious that the city was able to do what they did. And the scary thing is that they're going to do it again, right? So maybe it's an EV mandate coming up, maybe it's something else, right? But now they know they can get away with it, right? And that's scary. That should scare a lot of people, that it doesn't matter how much time, effort, money they put into listening to us. They'll just do whatever they want. And that's why I think this election is so important, not only to repeal the blanket rezoning, but to ensure that it can never happen again, right? And I don't care what legislative roles or legislative what we have to do to ensure that it never happens again. But if we can get enough counselors on there, we can put protections on any neighborhood that wants it, right? And not every neighborhood is going to want blanket rezoning or want that protection, right? Maybe there are neighborhoods like Legacy, and they're just like, yeah, no, we like the densification. But you go to Bonavista, Deer Run, Queensland, Mindapore, right? You're going to find 80-90% against it. So why are we pushing it through, right? It's it's just scary. Like that whole process. The big reason why people signed my petition last year was just like, listen, Landon, like our current counselors aren't listening to us. They're going to push it through anyways. Maybe there's something you can do about it. And I mean, obviously I wasn't able to, but if we get the counselors on deck coming up here, we can repeal it, right? And that's not saying people don't care about affordable housing, but you repeal the blanket rezoning, put protections on neighborhoods that want them, and then you make the process going forward. And I'll be honest, like even Bonavista, a lot of people are okay with some houses getting basement suites or some sort of development going, but the infrastructure has to be there. The parking has to be there. The neighbors have to be okay with it, right? But that's what it used to be. But why don't we make going forward that process of actually getting units available quicker, right? Because you got homeowners that want to put a basement suite in and dealing with again the bureaucracy trying to get permits and inspections, and that it can be months, right? Sometimes even a year. Some people I've dealt with, right? Trying to make sure everything's done to code and stuff, right? But for me, it's just repeal it, put it back to a system that makes sense and that doesn't affect every single aspect of a neighborhood. And then hopefully we can, like I said, make it affordable the right way. Yeah.
And so how would you go about rebuilding trust with Calgarians who feel like city council just doesn't care about them because of what happened?
So my plan is, and the city spends a lot of money on surveys, right? And unfortunately, a lot of those surveys go through the administration. And what scares me about that is, like, if you don't trust your government and then they spend $1 million on a survey, well, then how do you trust that the survey results are going to be true, right? And so if whatever the recent trust in their local government is right now, that means a lot of people just don't trust that the surveys are going to reflect what is actually out there. And so my biggest way is, well, council should receive those surveys first. Like they should receive the raw data from every survey that's put out, right? And then honestly, like I would say within one day, you can find out what a neighborhood wants, right? You go to 1,000 houses, 100 houses, you can find a feel what a neighborhood is worried about. And you can ask any candidate that's been door knocking for the past 3 months here, that's a survey, right? You're talking to people. Yeah, we don't want this. We don't want the climate emergency. We don't want this. Well, that's 90% that are against a lot of things that were pushed through. But the city knows this, right? They have the surveys. They know what people want. And so going forward, on my plan is that if my ward is 60% against or for something, then I want to put to motion that whatever that topic is or contentious issue, it shouldn't even go to council, right? Right? Like that blanket rezoning, 80% of or 70, whatever, 80% of people that showed up were against it. Well, they knew that before going to the marathon council, right? Well, if that was such a big issue, then they should have tabled it, avoided how much money we had to put into that, and then put it to next council or put a 10-year hiatus on it or anything other than what they did, right?
Yeah.
And so going forward, if there's 60% on any metric within a good enough sample size in the city, then that issue should be tabled, right? That will prevent this happening again, right? And like I said, they know that they can push it through. If they get the right council in there, the city can put whatever they want through. But that should scare a lot of people, right?
Yeah. And so would you be in favor of a plebiscite for big policy decisions like this, like putting it right to the people?
100%. And that's what a plebiscite is for. We did it for the fluoride. We did it for the the Olympics, right? That blanket rezoning should have went to a plebiscite. It would have cost a lot less than what they spent, to be honest. In my opinion, it would have cost a lot less to do it to a plebiscite than it would have having a marathon of whatever council hearings, right? So it's just but that should be the threshold, is that if it's a citywide issue, and hopefully not many have to come up again, but it should definitely go to a plebiscite when it involves the entire city. Again, there's something scary about that what's the next thing that they're going to try to push through, right? And I think it's so important that council reflects the needs of their ward, right? And like I said, there might be some wards out there where they're like, yeah, we want blanket rezoning, right? Well, don't make it a blanket thing, make it a neighborhood thing, right? Maybe that neighborhood does want blanket rezoning and the infrastructure can hold it, the parking's there, and then just have some sort of threshold so the neighborhoods aren't, in my opinion, destroyed by an overpopulation.
Yeah. And another thing that, really puzzled a lot of Calgarians was the city council moving forward on the 4 big projects it did, when the chief financial officer of the city had said, we really can't do more than one without taking on such significant financial risk. So the BMO expansion, the Arts Commons transformation, the field house, and the arena. What are your thoughts on how that played out?
Again, that's a lot of money, right? A lot of money on projects that not a lot of people can afford to go to. So I'm as a homeowner, right? I don't go buy a new fancy truck if I can't afford groceries, right? And right now this city has a spending problem. I mean, it is obviously nice to have good things in the city. It attracts a lot of people, but I just talk to too many people that are struggling right now. I think people would rather have seen, and I know this is provincial, but I think people would rather have seen transit being fixed, schools being built, right? We have to fast track a lot of stuff because of our population boom. And I just don't see an arts common or the BMO being a big priority right now. I mean, those seem like rich people or rich city problems, right? I mean, it would have been nice if the city wasn't on such a big hook for the arena deal there. Generations are going to be paying off that debt. I'm just not okay with overspending on stuff that we don't necessarily absolutely need right now. Right. I would rather see that money being spent more fiscally responsible. And for me, it's transit. Like, we got to get that green line built, and I'm not a big fan of spending money, but they've already put $1 billion into it, and if we don't get it done now, then it's just going to cost more money in the future. Same with the blue line going to the airport. Like, this is all stuff that should have been done 20 years ago. But again, here we are right now we have to talk about not being able to lower taxes because of the neglect. So I'm just not a big fan of unnecessary projects, whereas people want to see their tax dollars going further. And that to me is tangible things: roads, infrastructure, transit, and that's why I say we got to cut stuff that doesn't take care of the basics. And that to me would have been a lot of those Arts Commons stuff that, again, I don't even think I'll be able to afford to go to a concert or whatever at one of those things, because it's just out of our budget. So
And so let's chat about the Green Line LRT. It's also quite contentious. You see a lot of people that really are in support of it. A lot are really apprehensive, especially considering that the cost has continued to balloon, and now we're going to see a shorter track, and the issues seem to continue. It sounds like you're in support of the Green Line. And so what do you think about that project moving forward, and how should it be unrolled as we step into the new year?
Well, again, this council's put us in a predicament. We could cancel the Green Line, but we'd be out $1 billion, right? What would all that money have been spent for? So it's just, as a guy, like, I manage projects all the time, and if I went over budget or did that, like, I'd go bankrupt. Whereas the city can just take more money out of our pocket. And it's frustrating that we're in this position that we have to decide what we want to do. And for me, it should just be built, right? It should be built efficiently and effectively. I don't care if we have to micromanage it. I don't care if we have to put a committee together that oversees monthly updates on it. But at this point, we got to work with the province. We got to work with the federal government, and it's got to be fast tracked, right? It's got to be done now, because 5-10 years from now, the project's going to triple, quadruple, whatever, right? It's just going to cost so much more in the future. I mean, if we could go back, you know what, maybe it would have been better collaboration or better negotiation with the province, and maybe this thing would have been done already, right? Whereas again, we just had too much fighting of ideologies down at City Hall and with the province, and I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with people wasting my money and your money anymore. So if we need it, then we've got to build it, right? And that's what the older generation, they built the Coquihalla in a very short amount of time, right? We've enjoyed this infrastructure that our grandparents and parents have built for us. And here we are trying to fight just to get a simple track laid, right? Like one piece of track would be nice to see a start on that thing. But it sucks. It sucks that we got to spend all this money and do all this. But I mean, people in the southeast there, they have to be able to, you know, get to work efficiently and cost effectively, right? But it sucks. Trust me. There's nothing fun about spending that much money, but if we don't do it now, it's going to cost more in the future. So, and then if we're going to be a world-class city, then getting I think it's like 2 miles to the airport. Like, again, that should have been done 20 years ago, right? And here we are talking about how much money it's going to cost us to do it. And I'm okay with having it above ground, right? I mean, Vancouver figured it out. It's, you know, very efficient way to get to and from in Vancouver. Portland's figured it out. Like maybe we have to go underground in some areas, but at the most cost effective way, then let's just get it done. Like, we can add art to it after and pretty it up a little bit. But I mean, again, it's just, if we don't build it, it's going to cost us more in the future. So.
And so on these mega projects, how should the risks and costs really be shared between the city and the province? Because that's been a point of contention as well.
It's still taxpayers' money, right? I hate having this conversation, because people just think, well, the province owes us this, and you're just like, it's still our money, right? And at some point, like, I don't really. Again, we just have to work together, right? It's projects got to get done. I mean, again, the water main, like all these big infrastructure issues have just been neglected for so long, right? And again, I'm not a fan of spending money, but if we got to spend money, it's got to be on the basics, right? And people don't realize that. Like, if you have a water main break that feeds the entire city, right? Well, look what happened last year. Well, if that happens every year going forward, people aren't going to move to the city anymore. Industry's not going to move here anymore, right? If they know their employees can't get from A to B safely on either transit or on a road, then the city's just going to fall apart, right? Like, we've stepped away from oil and gas, which we shouldn't have. And we've tried to make our city on an economy that just can't sustain itself with infrastructure like we have right now. So going forward, I think, major projects, they have to be focused on the basics, right? And I'm okay with that, because that's what functions a city. So.
And so you mentioned something else I want to chat with you about, which is the infamous water main break of last year, where we saw residents across the city out of water, or really inconvenienced, or, you know, boiling water, a whole slew of impacts. And folks are really, really critical of city council and how they manage that. Everything from the risk portion to communications. What are your thoughts on how that rolled out and how that was managed by city council?
I mean, it sucked for everybody. Like, there's nothing fun about that. And you it's easier, obviously, to judge people after the fact, right? So I try to give leeway to people, because I don't know what I would have done or you would have done in that situation. But you would hope that being honest with people is the best. But I did feel they kind of gave us the kids' gloves there for a really long time, and I'm not okay with that. I would just want to know, like, the straight facts. And, you know, I mean, they tried to do a little bit of a inquiry into, did they know about it before? Did they neglect it? Did whatever, right? And again, we can worry about the past, or we can ensure going forward that that doesn't happen again. Just the way they handled it, right? I'm sure it will happen again, but going forward, like there's got to be a better process on getting the word out. I mean, they loosened the restrictions for obviously for the stampede, right? So then was it really an emergency, right? And so there was just a lot of people, again, that's that mistrust, right? When you're told something's an emergency, like the climate emergency, and then they don't really do anything to enact an emergency type feel, like, and that's why, like with Gondek, she wouldn't take the transit to work, and I was like, well, that would show a lot of people that you do care about the climate.
Yeah.
But then, same with the water main. Like they called it emergency, but a lot of things didn't reflect that. And I think, going forward, this council should be a little bit more forthcoming and honest with how things are going down at City Hall. And that, again, it just comes down to transparency, right? If we can't see what this city's doing, then, how do we trust them going forward? And I mean, I've done my own little investigation on kind of the water main, and it does feel like they knew about a lot of these issues, right? And now, did they let council know about it, and council didn't do anything, or did they not let council know about it? I mean, that stuff should be taken care of, because if there's administration or even council members that neglected to follow through with some of these fixes beforehand, then there's got to be consequences to that. So
and you mentioned transit and taking transit. That's another area I'd love to pick your brain about, is that lots of Calgarians don't feel safe taking transit currently, whether it's the LRT or even now bus routes are being impacted by the lack of safety. How do you think City Council has managed the transit strategy with respect to safety?
I believe last year they had like a 25-point plan on increasing safety. But again, like those are just words on a page, right? And then you wonder, like, well, why didn't you implement one of those plans, right? Like you guys spent all this money figuring out, okay, our transit is unsafe right now, or people mistrust it. And so just going forward, it's as easy as looking at cities that have safe transit or people that trust their transit. Well, what do they have? Well, they have turnstiles. They have more police presence. They have, that to me is just simple, right? Like I'm not going to take a transit if I know anybody can walk onto that train, right? My wife works as a nurse, and so when they increase parking at the hospital, like they're kind of edging people to take transit, and my wife's not going to take transit from down south all the way to Peter Lougheed at 11 o'clock at night, right? That's just not going to happen. But I mean, if you have ticket barriers, right? And I know people are like, oh, well, it's going to cost money. I'm just like, well, it's going to cost money not to have it, because nobody's going to ride it anymore. And then if you have to actually pay to get onto a train, well, then ridership is going to go up, and the fares are going to be paid, right? So I don't know. I think that's a simple solution, is putting up ticket barriers. I don't know, getting more peace officers. Like, again, this is all stuff that was already talked about and should have been done already, right? And we'll just think, if you build trust in the transit system, then more people are going to use it, and there'll be less cars on the road. And we just did more for the climate than Gondek ever did, right? By just doing a simple fix.
And so a lot of people have concerns about vulnerable populations in transit. So folks with mental illness or, addictions and those sorts of things. How would you see working with the province to support those people, to get them away from, the transit stations or anything like that, to also go towards the safety aspect of transit?
I'm okay with working with the province on that. I think their next step going forward is the involuntary rehab. I think that would probably help a lot more families than what's happening right now. But I mean, throwing money at problems is just not working anymore.
Mhm.
A lot of people have lost hope. A lot of families have lost hope. And for me, again, as a trades guy, like paychecks are a very good equalizer and giving people responsibility. And I know there's no easy solution to this, but I mean, destroying somebody's ability to get to work on transit, I'm not okay with that. So
Yeah.
if we've got to move the vulnerable population off of transit, then I'm okay with that right now,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then going forward, again, it's just council's not psychiatrists, we're not psychologists, like we're not going to have all those answers. But you know
Mhm.
what? We do have a great healthcare system in this province that might actually have a solution to it. So
Mhm.
you have to work with people who actually know how to fix a problem, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like, the city doesn't have a healthcare department. So why are we trying to solve something we don't have any real big knowledge in doing, right? So I think
Mhm.
working with the province and ensuring, vulnerable populations have, which I think they do. I think there is a very good set of systems down in the city core that do help people, right? There's a lot of nonprofits, a lot of churches.
Mhm.
They're doing their best, right? But I mean, the I don't know. Going forward, like I'll be honest, I don't know, right? I just know
Mhm.
throwing money at problems that hasn't worked for
Yeah.
forever, right? But the only
Mhm.
thing I could really speak on is that I would love to have some of these people come learn a trade, right?
Yeah.
And just see how rewarding it is to fix something and earn a paycheck and start taking care of yourself, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, if it ever comes down to it, I would love to get more industries involved with the solution. And there's a lot of warehouse jobs in Calgary, a lot of non-skilled trade jobs that could be filled by a lot of people that maybe don't necessarily have the opportunity right now because
Mhm.
of addiction and mental health. But coming out of let's say rehab, well, let's make sure they have something available, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the thought of vulnerable populations and public safety leads me to thinking about the supervised consumption site that we have in downtown Calgary at the Sheldon Schumer. There's a lot of debate on whether that should be closed or moved or left as is. What is your perspective on that? Should we close that site or should we relocate it? What do you think?
Yeah, so I've been down in Vancouver where they've had their safe consumption site there, and it doesn't work. It's I think enabling is just, we tried it and it doesn't work, right?
Hmm.
It destroys neighborhoods. I mean, you can't have enough resources to keep up with the demand for it, right?
Hmm.
We're taking a lot of nurses and doctors and you know I don't think it's going to work. So I would close it. I would work with the province again. Not that it's going to be a perfect solution to anything, but I mean,
Hmm.
it was a nice try. But I just think it's destroyed a neighborhood, right? And
Hmm.
and that program should be closed 100%. Work
Hmm.
with the province, like I said, work with people that actually have uh, maybe a better solution. But I'm thinking we're at the next point in this game. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And this election is really interesting for a number of reasons that we've talked about. It's extremely important for a number of reasons, but also this is the first time we're seeing political parties at the municipal level. Are you part of any of these parties? And if so, or if not, what does that mean for your campaign?
Well, I'm not conservative, but I mean, there's no conservative party. I mean, you can paint any one of the parties any way you want, but I'm running as an independent.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of power in that for Ward 14 to have an independent voice.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, I am a conservative, but I pray that a lot of votes down at City Hall don't necessarily have to reflect either left or right wing ideologies, right? I
Hmm.
think voting on getting roads fixed, it should be a, you know, priority doesn't have to mean you're left or right wing person, right? So
Yeah.
I think if we focus on the basics, like being a conservative or a liberal shouldn't matter, right? I think if we can find common ground, and for me that's money, right?
Yeah.
If we can say, well, how do we spend less and get more out of how much we do have to extract from taxes, then let's focus on that. I don't really care if you're left or right wing, but if it comes down to it, I'm telling people I'm a conservative. I have conservative values, and that's the fiscal side of that. Is I'm not going to vote on tax increases, and until I see cuts. Right? I want to see that every dollar. No, every penny. I want to see every penny being used effectively. If I see a penny being wasted, then there's got to be consequences to that. So,
Absolutely.
but I mean, for the party system, I understood a little bit why they introduced it. I mean, you could basically call two different parties the last 4 years in the city of Calgary. Now we're just putting labels to it. But going forward, I'm very happy that I ran as an independent, and I think that's going to add a lot of power to Ward 14's voice if I do get in, right? Because we're going to have a lot of say in how things happen in the city going forward. So,
absolutely. Well, Landon, this has been really, really informative, and I've really appreciated hearing your perspectives. Before we close this interview today, is there anything you'd like to leave behind with our viewers, whether or not they're in your ward? Just kind of a last message overall.
Yeah, so last year doing that recall, that was more than I ever expected it to be. Literally was just frustrated like everybody else, but I'm just somebody who can't sit back and watch things happen. And so when I filed that recall, a lot of people came to me as a voice for them, right? And so I want them to know that going forward, like, you can trust me to listen. And I think that's something our government hasn't done in a really long time. Right. And there's a lot of issues that people feel they can't talk about anymore. And I'm a big fan of, let's have conversations again. Right. You might be able to disagree with somebody, but do it respectfully. Right. And so I just want people to know, like, I'm not trying to be divisive in my actions or what I do going forward. And if I do win, right, my best interest is always just going to be for the city as a whole and Ward 14 as a whole, but just fiscally, right? That's, to me, money is just encompasses everybody. We're all under the same pressure cooker. But going forward, I just want to know that people can afford to live here. I want my daughter to be able to get a job out of college and be able to afford a house in the city. And I know that goes for so many people in this city right now. They're struggling. And I just want them to know that my best interest is always just going to be to ensure that they can live here and not have to leave. So, yeah.
And I guess I have one last follow-up question. How would you, make the residents in your ward comfortable and confident that if you were elected and Mayor Gondek was reelected, that you would be able to work together and, for their interests?
Yeah, that's a good point. So back in the summer, I sent Mayor Gondek an email congratulating her on running. And I thought that was really smart of her because, well, she could win. She knew how many other people were running against her. And, if conservatives do what they always do, and that's let their ego get in their way, then, she could potentially win. And so an email I sent her said, hey, if you win and I win, we could have major disagreements on, let's say, leadership styles or ideologies. But, if we found common ground as money, then we could show this city a lot of unity by working together and ensuring, we actually make affordable choices going forward. So I did reach out to her. I did, like I said, let her know that, she's a very smart lady. Like, it would have been really stupid of her not to run again, knowing, how many people are running against her. So, I always give props where I see it. And, she's smart enough to put her name on the ballot. And if she wins and I win, then, like I said, we can show the city a lot of good by working together. I mean, there are a lot of things that I would have a hard stance against. And honestly, if we get enough councillors, her vote won't necessarily matter going forward, right?
Mhm.
She can be the face of the city, but I mean, this city wants change, right? They want to actually see solutions to problems and not just
Yeah.
talk about it. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, finding that common ground is something that is absolutely needed at City Council. You
Mhm.
know, from all of our councilors. But Landon, thank you so much for taking the time today. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Please continue to stay informed. If you're not actively engaged, please get engaged. And most importantly, get out to vote. We need higher turnout. Your voice matters and we need to hear it. So thank you for watching. And Landon, thank you again for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.